This is a red maple, a Deshojo maple, and we grew it in these flower pots just to make the tree strong. So the original tree was about this size, but I've grown all these branches to make the trunk thicker and just to give strength to the tree. Now once it has grown to this sort of size with all these wide expanses of branches, we don't really need it anymore, so I'm going to cut it off and then I will decide what to do with it. Let's find my secateurs. So the first thing I do is just to do a rough conical shape. No magic, no mystery, and all you do is trim it into this shape. And in fact, most commercial bonsai are like this, not even as nice as this, and you would get away with it. But of course you need to have much more detail. Now, it would be a shame just to put it in an ordinary bonsai pot. I'll tell you why. Because all these lovely roots which have come to the bottom, look at it, it went into the gravel which it was standing on, and I suddenly thought, why don't we take it out carefully and see if I can make something with the interesting roots. Try not to damage the roots because I'm going to use the roots. Okay, I've got it out, and I'm going to now tease the roots and see how long the roots are. This just goes to show how vigorous maples are. I can never understand why people say that they can't grow maples. You just throw it on the rubbish heap and the maple will grow. It is that easy to grow maples. Acer palmatum. There's no magic to growing them. And I'm not even fussed about the soil on which it grows. I'm teasing the roots out because I'm going to try and do a root over rock with this. Many of you have asked me to show you how to do root over rock. So this is our chance to show you how we do root over rock. Root over rock is usually done with trident maple because trident maples are very, very vigorous trees, but the ordinary palmatums, Acer palmatum, Japanese maples, all the different varieties are also vigorous. Not as vigorous as the trident, but they're still vigorous. So we could use this for doing a root over rock. So what I'm doing is to carefully get the roots out and see how long the roots are, because I'm going to use the roots to drape around a stone. And if you grow a tree in a round pot for too long, the roots just keep going round and round and round. So it's not wise to keep it in the pot too long. You should take it out from time to time and spread the roots, especially if you want to create good surface roots on nebari. I don't like using the term nebari because it's a Japanese term and only the Japanese use it, but we all know what it means. It's just a word for surface roots. So I'm trying to create good surface roots by discouraging these circular roots to go around the pot. But because I'm going to try and do a root over rock, I'm going to carefully tease the roots out so that I don't cut any roots or keep as much of the root as possible. This is where I think you could use a hose pipe or even a pressure washer to wash the roots out. I don't often like to wash all the soil off. The Japanese are very fond of doing it, but I think it stresses the tree. So this works for me, so I will do it my way. But see how strong this tree is. I think this is one case where we could probably wash all the soil off and it wouldn't do it any harm. I'll have to cut just a few just to get at the insides. Again, these are the boring parts. I always say I don't like to bore you with the detail, but if you want to see it, I will just keep filming it. This is very nice fibrous soil, certainly not clay, and that's one of the reasons why this tree has grown so well and the roots are so vigorous. A lot of fine roots. There are many ways of doing root over rock. The proper way is to use young roots to drape over a rock. But where you get situations that have these exposed roots, you can more or less tuck a rock underneath there or a couple of pieces of rock and tie the rest of the roots round it. So I will just see that root is coming in the way, so I'm going to cut that off. I'm going to put a rock directly underneath it. Now that's another root there. You can see that I'm going to take off. So I'm creating a hollow in effect. Literally like a bird's nest. Where there are roots coming into the center, I'm going to remove those. That one's in the center. So I'm literally creating a hollow space there. So I'm in effect cheating because I'm using already old and established roots. Now let me find some pieces of rock. These are Chinese rocks. They're not the Ibigawa Japanese rocks. And this is a bit of rock and a piece of cement. So the cement almost looks like rock. So I will try and find a rock that can be tucked in so that the roots appear to cover the rock. You should always expose the beautiful parts of the rock. If you have a lovely piece of rock, there's no point hiding it. So you should show the rock as much as possible. So show part of it and then get the roots to be covering the rock. So it's quite a job always finding the precise piece of rock that suits the situation. So you may have to go through lots of rock. You see this one, the root sort of fits in there, so that would be nice like that. That looks quite nice. And then put another piece of rock there. And then once we've done that, we are going to tie the roots over the rock, either with soft string or you can even use wire, except that with wire you may get the things marking, but no matter, you can always remove the wire after 1 year and see how it's doing. So just hold it there. See what we can do. I just asked one of my colleagues, Steve, can you come here and hold this for me so that I can... Okay, if you just pull those two ends of the wires, can you... Okay, and then we wrap it further. So we wrap some more like this. Steve, if you tighten this for me, please. Really pull it tight and then wrap it on the other end of the wire. Leave a little bit, don't cut it too close. Okay, so there we've wrapped the roots around the rock. So that basically is what you do, and then we will now plant it back in the pot. Normally if you grow root over rock, you can also plant it back in the ground because the tree would grow more vigorously in the ground, and fill everything up and let the roots do the work. And that's how you start the root over rock. I will now take you to another example of root over rock that I've done before. This is a project I've been doing for the past 15 years. I know it may sound a bit blasé when I say, oh, I've done this 10 years, 15 years, 30 years, but this is absolutely true. This is a piece of, I think it is Ibigawa rock, and what I did here was to use several maples. It is still in the process of being made. Look at it. Several maples were used to wrap around the tree. There is one tree there, if we look at it, and this is another tree here. This is another tree, and this is another tree. So there are 3 trees that I've used just to get the roots clasping the rock. So this is a separate tree, that's a separate tree, and that's a separate tree. So 3 trees have been used to make this root of rock, and it's still nowhere near ready. And where the ties are there, it can mark it a little bit, so it's marked it. But I'm trying to get an overall triangular shape. This can be made into a branch, and you see where the wire has been tied round that trunk. It's made a mark, so unfortunately that spoiled that, but I can take it out and do something with it. But because the maples are such vigorous trees, that root over rock effect can easily be achieved. So that is 1 tree, 2 trees, 3 trees. And I will refine this a little bit, and I will show you how this progresses. So this is the root over rock that I started, must be at least 15 years ago. And we use these separate trees. This is 1 tree. This thick one is another tree, and this is the 3rd tree. So we've used 3 separate trees to bulk it up so that I can make it appear as if it is 1 tree with all the roots draping. But in fact, they are not roots. They are just the stems of the trees which have been wrapped round the rock. So that's 1 tree put over there, another tree put there, and that was the other tree, the 3rd tree, which was the most established tree. So we got these 3 trees which appear to be gripping the rock. So this main tree, this is really gripped it well. You can see how it's gripped it. Now, what do I do with it? If I was a bit lazy, I could just trim it into a beehive shape and sell it as a potential root over rock tree, but I won't do that. You see there's bits of wire stuck in there. So to improve it, I need to do something. Let's look at the tree and see what are the defects in this tree. I can, as I said, easily make it into a beehive shape, but this is coming inwards, and there are like 2 separate leaders here. Let me decide first of all which side to use as the front and which side to use as the back. In fact, this tree is so interesting, I could use either side as the front. If I use this as the front, I can just shorten this a little bit, maybe cut this out completely, let it splay out rather than come inwards. So I will shorten this and then cut it off there, and then maybe of the 2 I will just keep 1 as the leader, and then just bend the branching out this way, and I would get a very nice conical shape without any conflicting and crossing branches. So this is a defect, coming inwards, so I don't want that. If I were to use this as the front, this is also a possible front. I've got these 2 trees appearing to grip the rock, and this hollow bit here looks quite interesting. If I wanted to, I could even cut it off here, because this is well meshed into the soil, so this would appear to be part of this root, so I could get rid of that. But this gap here is a serious defect, so let me think what I can do with that. If I didn't want this, I could easily air lay this bit. I tell you why I want to air layer. I want to air layer because if you're producing a root over rock, it should appear as a complete homogeneous whole. Because if I were to introduce another maple, it would be a different color, the leaves would be different color, the bark would be a different color, and it would look odd. So I took a lot of trouble to choose these 3 trees, which are virtually similar in bark color and also in leaf color and leaf shape. So I could air lay this, get a tree out of this, and then plant this tree over here to fill this gap. So that is one possibility. I might still do that. This I will bend downwards so that I get a branch going this way to form the triangle. But I also thought of another solution. It is called inarching. See these shoots, these are only 2 years old. And if I didn't prune it, in 1 year I would get shoots about 3-4 feet long. I could easily bend this clump of little twigs and put it in here and let it grow so that it fills the gap and thicken the trunk here, so I could do that. So this is a possibility. I may well do that and see what happens. So all I need to do is get a bit of wire. Do I don't usually like using wire because wires mark it too much, but I will keep an eye on it. So do this. So we're going to hope that these little twigs will thicken and become branches, and this should fill the space. It's really growing this to make an additional trunk so that I get a thick trunk out of it. So this is what I'm going to do. I've in-arched it over there, and I'm going to just tie these little twigs around. And as I say, I'm not hoping for the best because I know it will work. I definitely know it would work. So I'm going to let these grow so it thickens it and fills this gap. So this I'm going to air here. This I've got to watch because there are too many twigs there. We could get what is called inverse taper, so I will probably deal with those. But I will now let these continue to grow because I can always in-arch some more branches. All these long straggly branches are not going to be wasted anyway, because should I want to in-arch this, I could in-arch this and get other branches as well. So these are all useful shoots that could be used. So it's really showing you principles for doing interesting things to this tree. So as you can see on this nursery, we have a lot of experiments going on. And what may appear to be ludicrous or crazy, they are all parts of the experiment that I have been doing.